Today, I'm very proud to introduce you to my entry to the 2022 Great Guitar Build-Off, the Eyecaster. Great, Daniel from Devil & Sons Guitars here. Thanks for watching, and before I go any further, we're talking about how I built this. Let's see it in action. Now that's just a few examples of how it can be used. I'm going to talk about more ways it can be used later on in the video, and also how you can own this for just £3, £3 British pounds. One thing I found watching all the final videos for the Great Guitar Build-Off kit build, scratch build and freestyle build is there's a lot to get through. So I'm going to keep my build short and sweet. For those of you that are new to my channel, you won't know that most people come to my channel to either watch my setup videos, my in-depth videos that look at various parts of the guitar and how they work, and also talking about the theory behind guitar mechanics and how guitars function, but also to see the very strange guitars I build. My background is as an artist. I trained as a sculptor. I used resin and clay and woods a lot. And a lot of those techniques have carried on in my guitar making. So people don't come here to see expert woodworking, which is what you're going to get from most of the other entries. What people come to see here is odd concepts, interesting ideas. And one thing I want to focus on in this video is the concept behind this guitar and how it's in the process of developing. I see this as the first iteration of the guitar, and I hope that whoever ends up owning it is someone that can help me develop how it can progress from using it in their everyday life. I almost forgot to mention, it's obviously part of the Great Guitar Build-Off, which means the Great Guitar Build-Off Academy, all the people that have entered any of the Great Guitar Build-Off competitions this year, can vote on their favourite guitar in this category, the professional category. Now, I didn't enter this competition thinking of it as a competition. I entered it in an opportunity to develop a new interesting idea, to interact with the guitar building community, which is something I loved and got the most out of from last year's Great Guitar Build-Off. So really, if you are watching, you want to vote for this, please do. But I'm sure a lot of the builders are there to vote for the really highly skilled woodworking and creative builders. Maybe not something that's quite a simple build essentially, but with this sort of weird, innovative idea. Possibly the most complicated thing in this was trying to work out how to get the bridge over the iPad without drilling holes through the iPad, and then where to put the pickups. Hence having the 3 piezo pickups, one in the neck, one in the bridge, one in the body. Anyway, let's get on with the build. I'm going to try and show you as quick as I possibly can. I've started off with a block of tulip poplar, and I've cut it to a size that's a bit more like a Jackson Dinky Strat shape, so a bit smaller than the standard Strat. Then I'm using an oscillating saw to remove a section, which is essentially going to be the doorway that the iPad slides in. It's held in place with dowels and magnets. And there's a lot of sanding involved in this, constantly. So both using my mouse sander and hand sanding, and then just lots of holes being drilled all over the body for almost everything. Using a mix of Forstner bits, flat bits, normal drill bits, also chiseling and routing. Here I'm cutting up a bit of steel, which is basically going to be the reinforcement for this section where the bridge is held. So the bridge is held balancing over the iPad, but I don't want it to in any way tilt and touch the iPad, so it's got to be really strong, hence putting the steel in place. Anyone that's seen my previous videos will know that I'm a big fan of filling the grain with primer, putting primer coats on, sanding back extra primer coats, but here I'm using wood filler. Now, I was really happy with this because it's the first time I've used my fret position stencils, which I'm going to be selling through my website. It worked out really well, very happy with them. And as you can see, a lot of my jigs and tools that I use are upscaled old vintage tools or made from scratch, like this fretboard radius that you can see. If you're interested in any of these, let me know in the comments. I'm very happy to make videos specifically about them. Now, with the neck, I ended up actually having to position the truss rod in a slightly different place to normal, so it's a bit further forward. Normally I'd end it at the nut, but it's a bit further forward because I'm cutting into the heel to allow for that iPad to slide underneath. And here you can see Jelly, my skull light, looking down on me as I'm cutting up the neck. And then, yeah, more sanding. You'll notice I'm using an angle grinder to shape the neck. The neck's actually a thick D shape. Then I applied the frets like this using terrible special effects. Sorry about that, got a bit carried away with the editing. And then there's all the standard finishing off. This is actually a very old crimson fret rubber that I have. And I'm using micro mesh to polish off the frets, which is something I've been using since I saw Philip McKnight talk about it in the Know Your Gear podcast. And because the neck's finished with Spray Max 2K matte varnish, I'm actually using a wax just to give it a bit of a buff, and Axe Wax is my new go-to. Now, one thing I wanted to experiment with on this guitar was the headstock shape. When I first started building guitars, I tried this headstock shape out on a few guitars. This is the one I made for Ginger from the Wild Hearts. But then I moved away from it, and all my headstocks have been different every time. But I'm about to do a production run of guitars, and I'd like them all to have the same headstock shape. So I've gone back to experiment with this. I also wanted to use this as a chance to experiment with my Cricut to make vinyl decals for the headstock. I found some really interesting material that I think I'm going to use on my space guitars. So this was an opportunity to try it out. And if you don't know my space guitars, here's Henning Pauly giving one a go. Then I've used EVA foam, this is 2mm thick, to line the upper inside of the guitar cavity where the iPad's going to go, so there's no chance that the iPad will get scratched. The idea being that you can swap in and out your iPad, it's not a fixed thing. And if you're going to buy a ticket for the raffle, don't forget this guitar doesn't come with the iPad included. Now, the next job is the wiring up. Now I need to ground the bridge, so I've actually made a hole here in the part where the bridge is going to go, not just for the ground but also for the pickup, because the pickup's going to sit in it. And if I skip ahead a little bit here, you can see how the bridge fits over that, and the pickup is going to stick to the bottom of the bridge. The idea here being that when I've used flat piezos before and sandwiched them between the pickup and the body itself of the guitar, there's less vibration and it doesn't sound as great as this hopefully should. All the wires of the 3 pickups go into the center. I can then wire them up together and have one lead coming out to the volume control. Now I actually tried 4 different volume pots here, 250 and 500K, both in linear and audio tapers, and decided that the 250 linear was the best choice. I also use this as an opportunity to try out the Marstronic treble maker. Now, I'm not sponsored by them, but I think it's a great bit of kit. I'm going to be making a whole video about it because I think it's so awesome. It essentially allows you to easily swap out capacitors and change the strength of the resistors that are either in series or parallel or both on that capacitor by turning 2 tiny little pots that are built onto the circuit board. And that way you can experiment to get the exact right treble bleed you want, which was really important for this build because it's only that one volume control. It's only the piezo pickups. I really needed to get it to sound as good as possible. Once you've got the setup right, you can measure the resistance and put your own capacitor and resistor in, or there's a smaller version of this that you can just solder in place. In fact, you can solder this one in place in your circuit and use its potentiometers and the capacitor of your choice that it came with. Ben from Marstronic has kindly offered 15% off for the first people that follow the link in my YouTube description. And then I've got a piece of EVA foam that just goes over the controls and completely seals it in place. It also adds as a padding for the back of the iPad. And in fact, if you're using different size iPads, I can put different size EVA foam into this cavity to help hold that iPad in place. I finished this guitar off in black because I thought it would help let the animation sort of blend into the guitar a bit more. Now, if you want to own this guitar, you can go to the link that I've put down in the YouTube description. I'm also going to put it all over my social media for the next few days. It's the Great Guitar greatguitarbuildoff.giveaway.com. And in the Great Guitar Giveaway, all the guitars that are made by the invitationals and the professional builds for this year's Great Guitar Build-Off are being raffled off for £3 per ticket. You buy one ticket, or as many as you want, and that might be the lucky ticket that helps you win one of the guitars. And then all you have to do is pay for the postage and delivery and taxes. But that's the small print and won't cost you very much. It'd be much cheaper than getting a guitar commissioned by one of those amazing luthiers. In fact, I'm going to talk about my favourite invitationals and my favourite professional guitar builders in my future live streams. I've got them coming in the next few Wednesdays, so stay tuned for them. The raffle is going to be live for 6 weeks, so the winning entry will be drawn on January the 24th, 2023. Please do go over, check out my guitar and other guitars on there. £3 bargain for one of those guitars. By the way, this guitar doesn't come with the iPad. This is my iPad and it's actually broken. I've had this iPad for years. What I'm going to be doing also over the next few weeks is putting up some shorts on my YouTube channel and on my social medias of other ways to use this guitar with iPads. And included in that, I'm going to demonstrate it with some other iPads so you can see how the size of the iPad isn't that important really. If you are interested in finding out more about the design process of this guitar, I'm going to put a link in the YouTube description of this video to a playlist that shows the development. Initially, I put up my ideas as a video and then had a few live streams, discussions on social media, discussions with various other guitar builders and guitar players about what they would want to see in the guitar. And that really helped me develop it. I also did one whole live day of prototyping the guitar in which I made 5 live stream videos throughout the day showing some ideas of how the iPad might fit in the guitar and how I might get the bridge to work over it all. So those of you that have been following my YouTube channel for a while will know that I'm a strong believer that the look of your guitar is very important to the way you play. Well, I mean, the way you play when you're performing on stage. So for example, think of Kiss. When we think of Kiss, we think of their over-the-top guitars. The Paul Stanley Smashed Mirror one, Gene Simmons Axe guitars. They're iconic. They're part of their look on stage. I'm not saying you have to be as extreme as Kiss, but I definitely feel when you're playing a guitar that represents you in some way, you play it in a slightly different way. I've made Viking and vampire inspired guitars for Zacharias from Axis. This is music used in his music videos, he plays them on stage and it's part of the set, it's part of the look of the band. Last year for Great Guitar Build-Off, I built the Staff of Light for Dr. Gothic. It visualised his music from his album that he was about to record, which is why I really wanted to make a guitar like this, where you can have animations, images, things on it that represent the music that you're playing at the time. But of course, there's extra things you can do with it. So this guitar doesn't have an interface for the iPad in it. And that's partly because a lot of devices now are Wi-Fi enabled. People suggested I should have an interface on this so you could use it to access your Boss Katana. Well, all new Boss Katanas are Wi-Fi enabled. So you can still have the program on your iPad. You can control your Katana, but you don't have to plug it in with wires or anything. I have a smart speaker. I can connect this via Wi-Fi to my smart speaker, which then plays through my amp in my workshop. So I can have music playing on my iPad that I can play along with through the same amp using Wi-Fi and no extra leads. That means the iPad comes out really easily and doesn't need to be hooked up with wires every time. There's so much potential. There's new systems for effects pedals that are floor-based that again can be manipulated using Wi-Fi from this iPad. The ideal thing would be for an innovative musician to take this and find apps that they can integrate. Maybe there's an app that you can use some beat generation on, do that live, it outputs via Wi-Fi to your amp, then you play along. Maybe you're just playing pre-recorded stuff. Maybe there's a visualizer app reacting to the sound you're making. I'm sure there's some of you out there that are already having amazing creative ideas for what you could do with it. Please let me know below in the comments. Contact me on social media. Why don't you even just bid £3 for a ticket? You could win this and then you could give it a go. Like I said earlier, I really want to interact with whoever wins it to find out how I can take it to the next stage. Great, well, thanks for watching. Those of you that are new to my channel, please do like, subscribe and all of that. So I'm going to leave here some links to a playlist about my Great Guitar Build-Off entry this year and some other guitars that I've made, some demos of guitars I've made, including last year's Staff of Light that I made for Dr. Gothic as part of the Great Guitar Build-Off 2021. As I've already mentioned, I'm going to be putting up a few shorts over the next few weeks showing other ways of using this guitar live. Until next time, happy strumming.